Well, welcome everybody. This is the regular meeting of the Housing Committee for June 4th, 2025. I am Kathy Hunter. I will be chairing tonight's meeting. And tonight we are joined by committee members Chris Dickerson, Jim Graham, Lou Schaefer, and Mary Dean. So the first item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes of May 7th, 2025. Did folks get a chance to look at those minutes?
Yep.
Okay.
I move for approval.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. All right, well, I don't see anybody here for public comment.
Kathy, I would like to say a couple things if you don't mind.
Sure.
At this point. Okay, so we had a lot of emails that have been going back and forth in the last month. And I expressed gently that I thought some of the emails were not appropriate, that they should be in a public forum. And I didn't get positive responses from people. So I contacted the Freedom of Information office and I spoke with, I'll find his name.
Excuse me, Chris, for
Yeah.
the record, could you just say specifically what you were concerned about?
Yep, I'm going to get to
I mean, we
that.
remember.
I'm going to get to this. So Russell Blair, who is a trainer at Freedom of Information, and I said to Russell in very general terms, let me make sure I got my notes here. If we were talking about creating a subcommittee to rewrite a plan, and we're talking about staffing a subcommittee, should that be in a public session or can we do that by email? He said, you have to do that in a public session. He said, you cannot do that by email. He stressed that when you send emails, and there's emails back and forth with conversation is a meeting. When you send emails to the entire board, that's a quorum. So when we do this, we are violating freedom of information. And I said, thank you, and I said, I will relay this back to the board. So things that we can't do, we cannot set up meetings by email. We cannot, now Lou, you sent an article, no comments. That's perfectly fine. If you send an article and you comment on the article saying this article is great, look at this page, that's not fine, okay? What you did was perfectly fine, and you send an article with a lot of commentary, it's not fine, okay? So I just want us all to understand that we don't want to get in trouble with freedom of information, okay? I look at this committee and every board and commission in this town as having three jobs. The first one is to follow the rules, and freedom of information is is the most important rule, and the next rules are whatever the rules that govern the particular body. The next thing is we need to represent the residents of Woodbridge, and sometimes I see this on lots of boards and commissions where the focus is on what they want to do and not what the public wants to do. So I'm glad we're having conversations about public meetings, public forums, but that's important. The third is the actual planning. But we need to do the first two before we get to the third. The third is planning. We must follow the rules, engage the public, and then plan. That's what we need to do. Regarding rewriting the affordable housing plan, after the housing forum, last meeting I couldn't stay the whole meeting, but it made me really think about what do we need to do to rewrite this plan. And listening to the speakers, they were emphatic. This needs to be done by the people. The residents need to decide what they want. And that's why I haven't been really active in the last month, because we need to engage the public to determine what they want to do, because that's the right way to do it. It's not our decision. The public needs to give us input. All four of the speakers said that. So I think that's very important that we need to work on that. Just want to see if there's anything else. I think that's all I had to say on the freedom of information aspect of it for now.
Okay.
Can I ask a
Chris.
question? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say thanks, Chris. We appreciate your commentary. For the record, I just wanted to state that the subcommittee, or whatever you want to call it, never did meet based on
Correct.
your say-so, and I just wanted to put that in the record,
Yeah.
that we didn't
Yeah.
meet.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be deciding anything for the overall committee, and we could do that today, as you indicate that we could do it. But it's just to speed things up, so that we're not sitting here going word through word, and they'll make recommendations like we had from Mary, and then we'll talk about it.
I understand what you're
That's all.
saying,
Yeah.
but the creation of a subcommittee would require having minutes and an agenda and filing them. This is what he told me, because I was very vague with him. I said, I serve on the board, I have some questions. I did not tell him what board, I didn't tell him what town. I just was very vague. I said, this is the scenario, and he said, oh yeah, no, you can't do that. He says, oh, you cannot do a subcommittee unless you do it, you create it in a public session, and you notify people like we do with a regular meeting, and take minutes and have a quorum for it. So,
I had, I know a lot of people who said, but we created a subcommittee, a working committee when we were getting things ready. We'd have a committee that was working on putting together the conversation.
When Dominic was chair.
When Dominic was chair, yeah, and they were housekeeping kinds of things, who's gonna bring the cookies kind of stuff.
no,
We don't
who's
need-
gonna bring the cookies is not the same as what's gonna be in the affordable housing plan, okay?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
but I would just like to reiterate what he said. There was never an intention or an expectation
I understand.
that we would be having that we would have the last word, just housekeeping. Now, the other thing I want to suggest is that remind you that we are not going to revise the affordable housing plan right now. Our intention currently is just to make any necessary changes to update things that need to be updated per the law, or that were confusing or potentially problematic in some other reason for right now. But as far as my understanding is, we're not going over the whole
Well,
thing
we're modifying the plan. We're
amending.
modifying the plan. We're editing it.
We're editing.
Okay, so whether it's editing it or revising the entire plan, we're still working on it, okay? And it's still, we need to follow the same rules.
Okay,
And
you said
I understand
revise.
where you talk about other places, other committees, other times in the world, you have subcommittees and that operates. Doesn't mean it's right, it may not mean it's wrong. But in this instance, I didn't feel it was right. I feel like people should know that we're doing this, okay? And so we just gotta be cognizant of the fact that people need to know what we're doing.
Yep, I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
We didn't mention at the last meeting that we were thinking about forming a subcommittee? Or was
Didn't
that?
see anything in the minutes.
No, it was just the way you do these things, and so I
Okay, so
just
that was
threw it
after
out,
the
and,
meeting.
I'm professional at this, and this is how you do it. So we weren't having any luck getting to the topic,
Right.
given the other things that we needed to talk about in
Yeah, I
our
mean,
meetings.
there's a
And
lot of
knowing
work.
as I do how futzy this is, and you really need to have concentrated attention for at least an hour, even if it's only 5 pages. You have to dedicate that time just to kind of cut through it, make sure that you know all the issues, and have a suggested set of wording for the whole committee to look at. But, each one of us has our own
Well,
expertise.
our goal is to really, get this done. And Chris, I imagine, so did Chris give you his
I have not
his changes?
given anything
No.
yet because there's so much going on right now. I think we need to take a step back and really digest the housing forum and then also this new House bill that just
I
passed.
disagree.
Okay, no, we're
Very
not gonna, we said we're gonna get this done.
So you want to do, what do you want to just do, language?
We are just going to
Yeah, that's why it wasn't a
update the
big deal.
information.
Well, it's
Just
not a big deal,
editing.
but you can't do it
Okay.
Okay,
outside of the
okay,
eyes of the public.
I-
Look, it's
that's
a
fine.
public entity versus a private entity thing. If you're working for a corporation, you can absolutely do
Okay,
that.
Chris, we got your
Okay.
message. I appreciate
Yes.
your comment.
Right.
Okay.
And we're gonna do it that way. That will probably mean, in my view, that we have to have a special meeting for it, because we gotta
Yes.
get it done.
Yes.
I'm really tired of
Yes.
it hanging over us like
Right,
this.
right.
I don't know if I speak for anybody else here.
I was gonna ask a question, but I think we should just move on.
Gotta speak a little louder so I can hear, forget about the public.
Okay.
No, I think I'll hold my powder. I was gonna ask a question, but I think it just go down a tangent. It's not worth going down, so let's not do that.
Okay, well, I will, I'm just gonna quickly go through a quick housing chair report, because most of the items I would have put in my housing report, I just made as, separate agenda items. But I did want to just report, because I don't think I circled back about the Country Club of Woodbridge Master Plan. Just to report that, I believe the work of the Technical Assistance Committee is technically done with. And so the information, the feedback went to the Board of Selectmen. And if you needed an update on where they are with that, you could probably go to the April 28th special meeting. And if you go on the Country Club Master Plan link, there is a decision-making guide, and they're using this decision-making guide for how they're going to plot out, a framework of what they envision for the Woodbridge Country Club. So I imagine there's going to be housing at the end of the day, but how much and what kind is still, I think, up for decision based on the next step is to be like a cost benefit analysis as to what type of developments go there. So I just wanted to kind of finish that, that reporting for the technical assistance plan. And anything else you want to know about the master plan, you could, that's up on the website. And now the task force, you have a community event, Chris, right? You want to talk about that?
We have an event on June 16th at Crest Lincoln dealership, 6:30 p.m. to discuss the first 30% design phase of our connectivity project. This will involve modifying Lucy Street, Amity Road, and Bradley Road, putting sidewalks on both sides of the roads, crosswalks, narrowing the roads a bit, making the roads safer for people to walk and bicycle and drive on. So it's a pretty comprehensive project, but it's really concentrated in that area there. So it's the first meeting where we have actual designs. So we'll have a presentation by SLR that's doing the engineering work, and then public comment and public discussion about it. June 16th, 6:30 p.m., Crest.
Any questions for Chris on that? Okay. And again, in terms of what's happening at planning and zoning, I just encourage everybody to watch proceedings. It's pretty interesting, and I think one day it's going to be a really good case study. But it does involve housing, so I would stay up to date with what is happening at planning and zoning. And also with planning and zoning, there is a special meeting on Monday to finish. I'm figuring it's probably going to be the last day for our work session working on the POCD. We're updating some theme areas and land use plans. And so that will be Monday, and then at that point, it goes over to the Board of Selectmen.
Which Monday is that?
Monday, the 9th?
This coming Monday?
This Monday, yeah. And I imagine there's going to be some change, as Chris alluded to, and that will probably even change what you're doing down the business district. There's been some changes, pretty sweeping housing reform changes from House Bill 5002, which is actually now Public Act 25-49. The governor has not signed it, so it's not like fully enacted. I suspect he will be signing it since he did put some of his own provisions in there, but it's not yet, law of the land. But I don't anticipate any issues with him signing it.
Did they discuss it in the SCROG housing meeting today? I didn't get to attend.
They did discuss it. I don't know if anybody, I was kind of in between like two other meetings. I was trying to listen to it. But they did do an update, and they did essentially what I'm going to do right now is just kind of scroll through some of the interesting provisions. There's a lot of different bills that they mashed into one big bill in this Housing Bill 5002. And so I'm going to hit on a couple, but I did send a link out. I don't know if folks had a chance to look at it and dive into it. There's a lot to digest, and there's a lot of analysis that's going to have to go on. So one thing that they did say at the SCROG meeting is that, you know, a lot of it is like under OPM, so there's going to be there's going to have to be some direction and guidance as to how this gets implemented, because there is a lot of questions, you know, in terms of the actual, you know, operationalizing, you know, what's in there in terms of what they have. But some interesting elements in there, and what I'm going to do is just roll through a couple, and again, if there's other areas that you want to talk about, you know, please let me know. Did anybody get a chance to look at what I sent out, first of all?
I mean, the actual bill?
It was it was Connecticut Legislative Research Analysis.
I mean, I was looking at the bill. I read the first 10 pages of it, but it's a lot.
Yeah, well,
Is that what Ian sent out? Because I looked at what Ian sent out.
right, what I sent out the agenda, the SCROG agenda, and if you linked
Yeah.
into the legislative, so it had the, you know, kind of like the first part was summaries of like the different provisions, and then you can link into the, you know, deeper into the information. But the whole bill itself is,
91 pages long,
91, it was 92.
because I started to read it. And I said,
Yeah.
wow, this is a lot.
And of course, not all of it's going to be applicable to Woodbridge, right?
No, there's some areas, there's some things that aren't. So
That's a lot.
I'm going to just talk about a couple that are, because I think this is going to be interesting, talking about the business district. As of right development on commercially zoned lots. So generally requires regulations adopted to allow as of right middle housing development on lots zoned for commercial use. So middle housing is 2 to 9 units.
Thank you. And I'm the one that always complains that nobody could hear us.
That's funny. So, you know, I'm just, it's probably as we, you know, go through our planning, it's certainly something that could come up in the business district. So, you know, might be something you might have to work into Task Force 2030.
2040, the next one.
2040. 2050. Minimum parking requirements, prohibits having minimum off-street parking requirements for residential developments. Let's see, discretionary infrastructure funding definition prioritization requires that municipalities eligible for priority for certain discretionary infrastructure funding under both the bill's fair share allocation planning and transit-oriented development district provision receive the highest priority for the funding. So they're going to be prioritizing their state funding in terms of how, and again, this is my understanding. I could be wrong, but this is the way I'm reading it. But the sense is that they're going to be prioritizing towns that are going to be, you know, trying to promote housing.
Maybe once the bill is signed by the governor and it's analyzed a little bit more, someone can come in and explain this
Yeah.
to our committee and to the public, the nuances of the bill.
That would, yeah. Well, you stole my thunder because I was going
Sorry?
to talk about that.
Okay?
Great minds think alike.
Yes, yes. But great idea, Chris. For the next steps for informational sessions, I was thinking about having Sean Gill, who's the policy expert in the state, come and talk about the changes, because it will probably take a bit to digest. Planning for municipal fair share allocations establishes a framework for prioritizing certain discretionary state funding. It's kind of like what I said before. to specify municipalities, including those with relatively high property wealth per capita with OPM-approved plans, to, among other things, allow for the creation of affordable housing units needed to meet 25% of their fair share allocation. Now, that 25% of our fair share allocation over the next 10 years is 332 units. So, we have talked about doing 500 units over 20 years, so, I think we're in the ballpark. And that kind of comes out to like, just so happens to kind of come out to 10%. Anyway, I don't think it's any big stretch from what we thought could happen, because that was just 25%. The original number was like 13 something. Fair share methodology and land inventory, and so this requires that, Woodbridge will have to submit information on vacant and developable land to the majority leaders roundtable, and that I believe needs to be submitted by January 2026.
Is
And
that public land or all public and private land?
all land, public, town-owned land, private land, whatever we think could be developed, whatever is vacant and we think could be developed. And, we saw, last month, SCROG actually was starting that process, and, it just so happens to be, so I don't know whether or not they kind of had an inkling that was going to be happening, so they did develop some of those properties, vacant properties that have capacity to be developed. Regional services grants to the COG, so it looks like they're going to be providing some more capacity to SCROGs to help with the towns. I know they are going to get somebody specific to housing to help towns with promoting housing in the SCROG area. Well, in all the COGs, they're going to be providing extra funding for housing capacity. Attorneys' fees under affordable housing land use appeals procedure that allows the court to award reasonable attorney fees to an applicant under Connecticut State General Statute 8-30G appeals procedure if it finds after a hearing that the municipal planning or zoning agency's decision was made in bad faith or caused undue delay. So that is just, kind of, discourage
It's gonna be hard to prove.
towns or people to fight, the developer, comes in. It's just kind of to discourage, to try to maybe promote and work with the developer and get the housing built, as opposed to, maybe losing and then having to pay for all the attorney fees that go along with that.
What does that really mean? Does that really just mean think before you think that you could just use this as a delaying tactic?
Yeah, because you see,
It's a pretty high bar, though.
That's a really
Bad
high
faith
bar.
and stuff.
Can't imagine.
Nobody'd ever be able to do that.
And it also encourages people, it may encourage more people to bring that type of suit because they're gonna get attorney's fees, deep pockets.
yeah, right. But it's even like, organized groups that like try to delay, a development by, different tactics. So it's not only the town, it could be like, organized groups that come out and try to delay projects. Statewide wastewater capacity study requires the OPM secretary to study wastewater capacity in the state, including identifying areas underserved by wastewater infrastructure. And let's see what else. Different moratorium threshold after adopting priority housing development zones. So they're trying to incentivize towns to build housing. This is more of the carrot approach, and we did have Michael Santoro from Department of Housing, do during a joint meeting of planning and zoning and the housing come in to talk about incentive housing zones. So if you establish something like that, they actually give you more points towards the moratorium. And the key element behind establishing those zones is that it's as of right. It doesn't have to go through, your public hearing and all those barriers to creating housing. This one's interesting. I haven't dived into it. Bonus moratorium points for projects with a neighboring town's housing authority. So perhaps if New Haven Housing Authority did a project in Woodbridge, we would get bonus points. So that might be something to think about. Again, I haven't read this that deeply. And those were just the highlights of the, what I thought was the highlights. Of course, other people might think there could be other highlights, but I think what's important here is why I want to just get this phase of the housing plan over, because the next phase is going to be really important, and that is to actually come up with a plan as to how we're going to create the units of housing that we need to create in 10 years, and what zoning needs to be enacted in order for that to happen. So I think that will help kind of guide us, and it's something we've kind of been talking about for the past 2-3 months, but it's here now that this actually has to be done, particularly if we want to get prioritized for state funding, which the town does go after steep grants and things of that sort. So you want to be able to be prioritized for that type of funding. And that is all I have for the legislative update as far as I know. And again, I'm just scratching the surface. We will be, as more information comes up, we could talk about, probably just keep this on our agenda for a while as things come up. But it is an important legislative reform, and if folks, I would just encourage everybody to try to read at least a summary of it. And figure out, because this is going to have to be incorporated into the plan of conservation and development, but it's definitely going to be part of the affordable housing plan. All right. So no questions on that, huh? We might get out really quick. So we do have a community conversation planned. We talked about bringing in David Fink, and I know we talked about that during the meeting, so I think we're okay.
You probably did it last meeting when
Yeah.
I had left, and I didn't see it in the minutes, so I was curious about the details on this.
Yeah, I think Elaine did say it would be good to get David Fink, so yeah, we probably didn't
We
get.
talked about
Yeah, I
getting a
remember the
speaker,
conversation.
and I brought up the fact that,
Okay.
I brought up Ben because Ben's been here before, and I didn't know when his father was retiring. Ben's fiance is the one that actually filmed the movie, but we did talk about having it. It would be a good conversation to have, and it would be an open forum, and they'd see the movie, and that was it. Yeah, we did discuss it, and we
No, I
hadn't
think
finalized.
it's a great idea.
Yeah.
My concern is, well, June 26th I'll be away.
And I will too, by the way,
But,
not with you.
You're right. Well, you never know. I may run into you. I
never
run into
know.
people all over the world. With our 2030 presentation on June 16th, the town attorney has said we must consider that a meeting of the 2030 task force, and we need to have a quorum. Okay? I don't think that's accurate, but I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to question what he's saying at this point. But this is what I've been told, and I'll have a better answer Friday if we actually have to do that or not. We have never done that in the past. When we've had a community meeting, I mean, we had 3 community meetings for 2030 at the brewery and never had that. So just something to be aware of if they require that, which I can't understand why. But if they require it, there might need to be a quorum. But we had the housing forum and we didn't have to abide by that. So I'm
I-
really
I-
confused by
I
that.
specifically asked Mika about this because I do try to do things right despite what some people think. And
Kathy, everybody should try to do things right all the time,
I
okay? Just saying.
Right,
Everybody
we
should.
do a very good effort, being a committee here that has absolutely no support. Now, all your committees have support, somebody doing minutes, people doing notices, we do everything on our own. But Mika told me that I did not need to have, I was concerned about the quorum issue. Do I need to post this? And he said no, so.
Okay, and that's been the way it's been done forever, but I just want to make sure that we do it. I mean, we'll know Friday. I would ask Mika or Allison Friday or Monday, just to be sure that we can do this. I thought it was very strange that we have to have a quorum of a committee for having a public forum to present an engineering. It didn't make sense to me, but.
And does it make a difference if we don't comment? We're not we're not meeting as a committee. We're just sponsoring this presentation.
Exactly. It shouldn't
that's
matter.
Yeah, I don't think it's a
It shouldn't
problem.
matter.
So I'm not gonna worry about it. We have it planned. We have
Do you
somebody
have a
coming.
location,
It's gonna be at the Center Cafe.
time?
It's 6:30 to 8. I did
it's
send
just
something
something
out
today.
to Allison. I think Allison is just very consumed with the event tomorrow. So I imagine once that is over, she'll be able to put this on. But I did do an event title, because I didn't want to send emails out asking people what they wanted to see, so I just did it myself. So though we did kind of discuss titles before, so it's the 411 on housing, a community dialogue. And I have a description, join us for a thoughtful community-wide conversation about why housing matters. David Fink, a respected statewide housing policy consultant, will facilitate and engage in dialogue exploring the many dimensions of housing, from affordability and availability to its connections with town planning and local decision-making. Housing has become one of the most talked about and sometimes misunderstood issues in our towns and across Connecticut. This is a chance to ask questions, learn more, and consider how housing policies impact the future of our community. All perspectives are welcome. Let's listen, learn, and talk together. Okay.
That's great.
And then we're going to sing Kumbaya. No.
Yeah. And just to
we
give,
have enough room in the cafe.
You know,
Yeah.
when the first developer came to Woodbridge and wanted to build housing on the property on Bradley Road, both sides of Bradley Road, the neighborhood was absolutely dead set opposed to it. And they had meetings and meetings and meetings with the neighbors and explained to them what they were going to do and talked about things and engaged the neighbors. And in the end, the neighborhood supported it. And it didn't come to fruition, but we've got Toll Brothers, which is actually turning out to be a very nice development. But if you engage the public and encourage them to be involved in the process, it makes it a lot easier and a lot more productive. So I'm glad that we're doing that. I wish I could be there. But, I see we have other community conversations, so I'm glad we're going to have more.
Well, actually, that is...
Will we have that taped?
I don't know. I was thinking, I guess it should be taped,
no,
but, I don't know whether or not it stifles the conversation if people know that they're being taped, but it might have to be taped.
I don't think so, not in this town.
no.
Oh, I don't know.
My experience with courts is that
Yeah,
most people
it's
just ignore once they get into it, they ignore the
Ignore
counties,
it.
they behave normally.
Yeah.
And some people don't, but most
So
people do.
Yeah.
You want to ask?
We're going to
If it should
tape
be taped?
our meeting on June 16th.
Yeah.
That's in the works, to tape that, so people who can't make it can actually watch it and learn.
The
Yeah.
only thing with taping, I guess, but they could always put it's going to be a movie, but you could always put the camera on the movie, and that should work technologically.
Oh, yeah, he already did that with with the housing meeting.
Today.
Yeah, and he did, Nick did a great job at that, where he cut the video in. He didn't film the
And the all,
PowerPoint.
Film the film.
and I should disclose here, because the All In for Woodbridge Committee had brought this movie up and about sponsoring something, and I said, no, I'd be very uncomfortable. I'm glad I said this, because there's a housing committee, and if Elaine and I are in part of this, it'll be viewed as part of the housing committee, other meetings, and then, you know,
Yeah,
we should be going for other things. If the housing committee wants to ask all and to have sessions, that's one thing, but we shouldn't be acting on our own on this, and I got agreement on that.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, you know,
But they liked the movie too, they found it useful.
Yeah.
Ben had given them the link.
yeah, but the idea, I did ask, you know, Mika to share it with all the committees and commissions to give people, you know, because at the last session, you know, no one even from the Board of Selectmen was there, and that was disappointing, you know. They don't seem to come up to any type of, you know, housing informational sessions, and then, you know, it's like we get blamed when they feel like they don't know what's going on. So it's like, I hope that, you know, I hope these different committees and commissions do, of course, it's not, you know, it's end of June, it's a busy time, but hopefully we could get a good attendance from other committees and commissions, because everything's interrelated here. And if you could tell your 23rd, maybe send it out to your 2030.
Yeah, if you have a flyer, I'll send it out.
Yeah, I do have, I do have this event information. I could send that to
You
you.
should send it to everybody and we'll all share.
Well, what I wanted, I sent it to the town, because
Yeah.
my first thought was the town should send it out as coming from Mika to all the committees and commissions. That would probably have better pull than me sending it out. People might not want to come.
Maybe not.
Wow. So with that, any questions on David Fink? And
Is there anything more to do that needs doing to plan for it, or do you need any help?
At this point,
Cookies.
I have the information. Yeah, we probably should have something. That might be nice, because maybe I'll go to Costco and get
Get some cookies.
cookies and water.
We're gonna have cookies.
We're gonna have cookies, and you're not gonna be there. You're gonna miss
No,
it.
no, we're gonna have cookies at our
You're gonna have
2030
cookies.
event.
Say no more.
Cookies and water. You can
Yeah.
go buy beer next door and bring it over. It's the same property, so there you go.
Okay.
Yeah. No, well, we could do that.
The one thing, by the way, on the town meetings that always frustrates me is that they have these great slides, and I'm sure they're brilliant slides that people spent a lot of time on,
Can't see.
but you never could see them, and that was the case even at the meeting this week. They look terrific, you know, and I could see it. And I would ask Karen, because she has better eyes than I do. She said, I can't see them either, so.
A fighter pilot couldn't see.
Exactly.
You can't see.
Why is it always
Well,
blurry?
can they post the slides?
It's on. You could.
Yeah.
It's
No,
on
the
webs-
slides.
No, it's not everything. They were going through the plans, so
Uh-huh,
every single plan for that meeting is on the town's website.
It's on the town.
Was
Yeah.
it on the town website before during the meeting or after the meeting?
No, I think it was on before. I think
Because
she
if they
loaded.
point that out, we could all look at our cell phones and at least see what's there.
Yeah, because
Right.
I was looking at Rob Clee's computer, because he put it up on his computer, and my computer was going nuts, so I couldn't load it up, but he loaded up the plans, and he was looking at it on the computer.
Of course, if you get that many computers going on the same Wi-Fi, it'll just fry it.
Yeah. But no, all those plans are, planning and zoning, all the documents are, you have to go under, because it's like 3 different places where planning and zoning is, but you have to go under, like, the committee, there's like a specific area for the committees, where it says committees from, you know, H through Z or something.
Yeah,
Then you have to
yeah.
go under that section,
And
and
then
then
it's
you could
posted.
see all the information.
Well, I was looking before.
Yeah.
and-
So, I'm thinking with the community conversation, because it's going to be a community conversation, it would be like more of a circle, you know, I mean, we are going to like show the film, but I think the idea is to kind of get around in a circle to talk, like the way Ben did it, as opposed to like having a community a dialogue with people sitting in rows. I think it's better to have a circle type of setup, or maybe like, you know, maybe,
With David in the middle,
you
be
know.
like a donut.
Well, I was just thinking like maybe like a circle, and then there's a lot more people. We could do like a co-circle, because there might be some people just kind of want to listen to it. I don't know, but I just think it would make the conversation more of a dialogue. What do you think? You're looking at me like I'm nuts.
Honestly,
I
I'm
hear you say
thinking of
donut,
P shells and
it's
S
like
shells
you can't
and
get-
molecules, and I'm thinking, okay, fine,
Okay.
great.
No, I agree. I think that we should not have it in rows, because that, people can just walk in the room and they'll get the idea that something's different here. We're
Yeah.
not gonna be lecturing to them, and
Yeah. The whole idea is we want people to talk. We want to, you know,
we don't
answer
want
the
them to feel
questions
so
again.
formal. Yeah.
And let people, because there's always been like, never really an opportunity for dialogue. It's either people coming up and talking at you, or us talking at people, and there isn't really room for a dialogue. So I think this is, and even at the informational session, you know, we kind of, I gave the option for people writing down comments. I didn't mean like you could only write down the comments. Like if you wanted to take the microphone and ask a question, you could do that as well and have a dialogue. But again, so it's
Yeah, and you'd offer people the option, because some people feel better about, you know, thinking it out
Writing
and
it.
writing it out and then saying, you know, but if they can, if they just want to articulate it and talk, that's fine too.
yeah.
I mean, I think you're right about the circle, it encourages
It does
familiarity.
encourage us, I
What, what will David be doing? Will he be introducing the film and talking about it beforehand, and then after, well, will he be stopping it and annotating it? I mean, what's envisioned as to what his role will be?
Well, yeah, it's not all about the film, because a lot of it is just to answer questions people have that go beyond the film. I mean, the
And
film.
David will answer those too, or that,
Well, I think we're going to be part of it. You know, the idea was, you know, I think the housing committee should be able to answer whatever questions, you know, audience might have in terms of, you know, what we're doing, or, because they may have questions of us. I asked Justin also to see if he could be there, because, you know, in terms of, you know, what's, you know, steps for planning for housing. I thought it would be good if he was there as well, so I'm hoping he's able to be there. But it's really just a discussion how we move forward with promoting housing.
When I was listening to some of the public comment for the TPZ presentations, I heard people quoting what they had heard at the April 30th panel, and I thought, I can understand why they put the spin on it that they
Yeah.
did, even though that wasn't the intention of the speaker, from what I heard. So then, if you think about that, that is something that you would like to talk about again. You'd like to say,
Yeah.
look, this is you know, this is the situation that you're interested in, and this is really we'd like you to take away from that, instead of. But I'm not sure how to make that into a question. I wonder if we should be asking questions, if we should have some questions that we know are of interest to people in the public because they've made comments about it or they've focused
Yeah.
on it.
Of course.
I think you should bring it up, yeah.
Absolutely.
We
but I
should
would like to
analyze
hear,
that.
I would like to hear what the public says. I won't be there, so I won't hear anything, but it would be good to give the public an opportunity to talk rather than us talking to them.
Yeah,
They could
I
talk to
wanna
us.
do that.
No,
I mean,
but I mean, if you're gonna, the thing is, Mary, I think it can stimulate public debate, asking the kinds of questions that, you know, expand the discussion. And then people can get comfortable, and they can amplify, you know.
I haven't done so myself, but I was particularly interested in the quote from Mike Santoro, what he said, and they said, he said this, and therefore.
Oh, yeah, he sent
So
an
forth, and I
email
thought-
saying that's,
I can't imagine that Mike
What exactly are
actually
you
said
talking about that he said?
And
Curious.
I haven't gone back to listen to it again myself.
I didn't, because I
but
was
just to
not there for the public
Right.
comment part of that meeting, so
But-
I don't know what the public said about.
Well, it's just
that.
an example of what I'm talking about. If we see something that has been misunderstood, what's the best way to bring it back into the conversation so that we have an opportunity to correct misinformation that's in the public? Or even if it's just in the mind of one person. That's the nature of the question that I'm having.
yeah, Mike there was a public comment, and was it Amy Morella or Kathy Wick? They're so interchangeable. But
There
they,
were other people too who commented on things that they had
yeah,
heard
but
at that
they
meeting.
specifically stated that Mike Santoro specifically said that the Woodbridge didn't have to do housing. That was that's what they
That was
surmised.
their takeaway.
And I happened to be.
Oh, yeah, they weren't the only people who said that.
Yeah,
in
so
different
I happened to
ways.
be talking to Michael
Yeah.
Santoro on a couple development deals I was doing for a client. And I was like, can you just listen to this? You know, so I didn't want to like editorialize, you know, so I just played it to him. And he was just like, you know, oh, like that's like a real gross interpretation of what I said. And he sent an email to say that that's not what he said, and that was,
It's so complicated. It's
Yeah.
such a complicated topic. I don't blame people for misunderstanding.
well,
The
that's,
The
you know.
comment that really concerned me the most was when somebody from the public said, "And we don't have to do anything."
Right.
And I thought, whoa, we're not at,
Yeah.
we're not first base with this person.
No, they took us, and again, they took that
3
from
years away.
misinformation that came up to be, you know, Michael Santoro, who's DOH, you know, who's a big leader, and he said Woodbridge did not have to do housing, and it's like, no, it's not what he said.
What do you, I'm
But it's
confused.
more
What
to
do
the
you
point
know
that
is
it's
this?
not true.
It was a public hearing
no.
at a, I think it was either a Board of Selectmen meeting or
I know, but who sent it? Who received the email?
No, the email is afterward.
it was a public comment in response to Michael Santoro's presentation at our April 30th.
Okay.
So I think it might have been, maybe it was Kathy Wick who said it. And said, well, you know, so Michael Santoro, and gave his credentials, said we didn't have to, you know, do housing in Woodbridge. And clearly that's not what he
What
said.
does do housing mean in that context? I'm trying.
I might have gotten, meaning we didn't have to build housing. We didn't
I'm
have to.
confused. We're defending a lawsuit among other things.
Yeah, no, I know.
Which
It
is
was,
really
Yeah,
bizarre.
we're-
yeah.
Well, I think this goes back a long way, but I think I suggested at one point that we have an FAQ page online, and we answer questions for people. I mean, if you can get a succinct answer to why Woodbridge needs to build affordable housing, that might be very helpful.
If we could set up an email address where people could email questions, then we could read them here and say, someone sent this question in, read the question, and this is the answer to the question. Because we would have the questions in advance, and if we didn't know the answer, we could find out
figure
the
it
answer.
Yeah.
I mean, and that way, we're engaging the public in a way. Maybe some people might not want to come to a meeting and actually
Yeah.
sit there and ask a question. They don't feel comfortable. But that's an opportunity for them to ask a question, we can answer a question, and other people who are watching can learn from it.
Yeah, no, we've.
That's a good idea.
We have
That's a good idea.
asked the town to do that, to do it, you know, because I would have liked to do a blog, you know, where people could ask questions and we could respond to them. But we do say, Allison is our, and I've said this a couple times, that Allison Balsamas is our support person, and if anybody has any questions, they could send the questions to her, and she could give them to us to respond to. And I'd be more than happy. And in fact, that has happened on a couple occasions where people have asked questions.
But to have a dedicated, specific mailbag, so to speak,
Yeah.
makes some sense. You know, I wonder if we could
Like
try
a
to do
special
that.
email
It
or,
would make it
Yeah.
easier for Allison because she wouldn't have to do anything. It could just come to the board, our committee, and we could take a look at the questions, and read them at the public session here. And if we don't know the answer, say, we're going to get back to you with an answer.
I think it's a problem setting up town emails.
That's probably correct.
Because
Because it's really easy for us to set up our own emails, but it's really hard. It is hard to set up the town's email.
Yeah.
I will say that, but it's not impossible. And it will actually, in the long run, make it easier for her.
Yeah.
So
Well,
maybe
no,
we
I
should do
think-
that.
I think,
Take a little offer.
I think we did go down this path once before, and I think it came back that there was a problem with the, it was something, but we did ask about this at one point. But it seems like there is a problem setting up, because I know there was an issue with the Board of Selectmen having to be, because they wanted their own emails on the town's server, you know, as a result of the, you know, the lawsuit they were talking about, setting that up. And it seemed to be some reason why they couldn't do that, or they didn't, I don't know. But, so I don't know if they would set up a special email. I will ask. I mean, I'm still trying to get the share drive for us, so I could put all our documents, so people could have access to it. But, and again, it looks like there is a document area for us. When I was like looking around the website today, it seems like we have a folder with 3 things in there. And maybe she did set it up, and I just don't know how to put information there yet. I'm not sure. Do you have a document? Because I think I saw Task Force 2030 on there too.
I don't put
See,
anything in the shared drive.
we still have the 2022 housing survey.
Yeah, I don't know why that's still up there.
I mean,
We
I
haven't
don't
taken
know.
it.
But to
I don't
answer
know
your
if
question,
we
I don't
can-
manage that. So it could be that the town puts documents on there, but no one has said to me, you need to put documents on there. So I'll look at that and see.
Well, we've been asking for a folder so we could share documents, because I do send out a lot of documents, and it would be great for everybody to have one place to go to, have a dedicated folder, and then something that would be accessible to the public too, if they want to see what we're looking at, that everybody has access to data. Because I do get requests from people up, you know, outside the committee for data, and, you know, I'm sending reports out, but it would be nice if people just go to our file and just kind of look up all the data that we have. Because we have a lot of data. We have, you know, between our,
Yeah, where I was going with this was really just trying to simplify it for people, because there's so much information, there's so much data, and so much. Not sure how to do that. I mean, other people do it, but like, who? Somebody has an FAQ thing on their website, but I didn't think it was very helpful. Who was it? Not Scrog. Partnership for Strong Communities. So that I thought this is a good idea, but I don't think that these are the right questions. I don't know what the right questions are. Maybe I'll give it some thought.
well, maybe at this community event, we might hear a bunch of questions, and there might be a common theme, and we could just,
I think probably if we took 10 minutes, we could, not that I'm suggesting we do that, but we could come up with a list.
yeah, I mean, there's some questions like, what's affordable housing?
Do we really have to do this?
Do we have to do that? Yeah.
Well, why?
Yeah, why do we have to do this?
Yeah, I mean, anyway. Okay, so moving on, I have other community conversations, and I know, Lou, you've been engaging in other community conversations. Is there anything you want to talk about?
Sure, Wayne and I have been, you know, we've been like ham and eggs, we've been traveling together to these things, but we've been going to the SCROG meetings, which I'll start with that. They're very useful because you get to hear what other towns are going through and how they're progressing. And there's a big difference of what's going in certain towns, and there's different people on this thing. There are people from planning and zoning. From some towns, there are housing committees on others. There's one town has a housing committee which was set up on a voluntary basis, and they actually get people to come. But I mean, it wasn't set up by the town or the first selectman, but it was set up by the actual town.
Yeah.
Other people have successes. I guess we've had some too, but, you know, we're moving, you know, everybody's moving at a different rate and a different rate of speed.
Yeah.
And they're useful to do, and SCROG is there organizing it, and we do have these conversations. And the community conversations involving All In, which will be going public soon, I've been trying to keep actually the conversation, as I said, away from housing because I feel uncomfortable because if there's two people on this committee, you know, and I just feel that this is not the housing committee and other people could tell us what they want to hear and I'll pass those along to the committee, but I don't want us to be having sessions on it at this point. You know, if we ask them to conduct a session, that's one thing, but at this point, that's a little early. The conversations and the committee, all in, is now starting to meet every week. We do online. We have a live meeting in person one night a month, and then all the other weeks of the month, every other Tuesday, every single Tuesday, I shouldn't say every other Tuesday, we have a Zoom meeting, and we go over things there. We've been talking to various people on a variety of topics. They have a mission statement, talk about, you know, what we're talking about, what we plan on doing to let every voice be heard, and also making it a community, trying to bring, you know, my goal is to try to bring not a confrontational community, but to have a peaceful community where people could discuss things and do things. The first thing they're going to be doing is actually going to be a community walk and looking at different sites on town. I brought your name up, Chris. I was happy to volunteer you that you'd be a good
Okay.
one for that, and doing things of that nature. And you know, they'll be present at some of they'll be in. What's the big meeting that we go into? Would Just Like Me or?
Oh,
Woodbridge Like Me.
Woodbridge
Like
Like
Me.
Me, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll probably be there having a little presence there, but talking about what they're doing, and that's moving along. They're moving quickly, and it's going to be rolled out to the town soon, and getting more people to be involved because we don't want that just to be the handful of people, which is growing. There's been a couple more people that have come on and doing it, and we'd like more people to be involved and getting it involved, and they'll look at various issues, which could include housing and food, but it also includes knowing what this community has to offer, the walks, which is, I think, is a great starting point. You started something that people could get together on, and they'll be doing things maybe on mental health issues, raising children, a variety of issues that people have here, and giving them a forum to speak out and talk about things. So eventually, it might be a good forum for discussing housing, but you got to start out small. You got to start out at a uniting position, not at something where people are going to be yelling at each other from any position for all 500 points of view on this issue.
It's too bad I couldn't do anything for tomorrow, right? The zip code day.
Tomorrow is the zip code day. Why can't, well,
It's,
I
you know,
can't think of
it's
it. I can't go to
interesting to me that it doesn't actually have, that we should reach out to organizations in town to participate.
You
They've got
didn't
their own focus.
Know that?
Nope.
There-
I do now, but I figured it out all by my little self.
All in talked about that, by the way, but it was just not enough time to
Not
get
enough
set up
time,
for it.
yeah. I mean, they changed their advertising a little bit because they started off with honoring our code. I'm like, oh, yeah, I think it's because it is kind of cool. It's 06.
It is clever, but you know, and you know, I didn't think about it until I saw it. But you know, and that's obviously nobody realized it until it was getting, you know, not much time to
Yeah.
do anything.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the time's weird, so I'm assuming it's geared towards, you know, the kids, you know, because it's like 3 to 6 or something, and, you know, I wouldn't be able to get
It's
there.
geared towards businesses too. They contacted me about it and if I wanted to do a promotion, that sort of thing. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
It's a one-shot deal.
Yeah,
Not
that's
going to do it
right.
again.
Yeah,
That's
this is true. This
Unless
is
we
true.
take
Yeah,
this
right.
Be the
vote.
best
Change
one
zip
ever.
code.
Yeah. Yeah.
But hopefully it'll go well. Weather should be good.
The
Hopefully it'll
weather
go
will be
well. Get
nice.
some
Okay,
people
guys,
out to do something
Check it out.
fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that should be fun. I might try to go there, you know, after work. All right, well, that's good. So it's going to be all in Woodbridge, or?
All in which is there's a number of other communities that have it. There's an active one in Milford, and the active participants besides the people in the community who have gotten active in this group. And the group is being sort of chaired now by, well, besides Ben and Jen, internally it's going to be Sandy Stein.
Okay, okay.
And Tim Austin is gonna be at least organizing our agendas. I did not want to do that. And we are moving forward, very much so. And, as I said, Milford has one, Oxford has one, there's a number of towns. There's a meeting coming up when I'm on vacation, that will be from all towns getting together with their all-ins that I think, well, the last one was in Oxford. I'm not sure where this next one will be.
Very good. Okay.
Well done.
All right, so the next item, we kind of talked about this a little bit, but next steps for informational session. So we're going to have this session on the 26th. I also thought that perhaps we could just ask folks, what type of informational sessions would you like to see on housing? I thought this particular one is more like kind of a overview, like, what do you want to hear? That's why I call it the 411, like, talk to us about what the burning issue is about housing, what you'd like to know more about.
And you're talking about doing this on June 26th.
June 20th is a day, right, so it's gonna go beyond, doing the video. It's gonna be also
Right.
just having a dialogue, and just, people have some,
Yep.
specific questions they wanna ask, and they just don't have the opportunity to ask it, then this will be the time for them
Yep.
to ask.
Yep, and also since time will be very limited there, because just the movie's gonna take up almost a half hour, we'll give them index cards and they'll come back with questions that things that they'd like us to do, and we could.
They had
go
a
over that.
shortened version though today, I think.
I was going to say, we were talking about, maybe we could get Ben's girlfriend or whatever to edit it a
shorten it,
little
yeah.
more.
No,
Yeah,
it
because
was-
a few of them, obviously, a few of the developments are similar, and the people talking are similar, but
Yeah, it was funny because I was like timing it. I said, okay, this is 20 minutes. Let me like hop on another call. And then I saw that it was over with. I'm like, oh, they shortened it, So maybe we could use
Yep.
them, because I think the shortened version might be.
It was more, a lot of David's comments were repetitive, actually.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
his analysis was repetitive, and so it didn't really need to have a lot of that.
Right. No, I think so myself.
I sure wish I could remember what was said when we were first working on the affordable housing plan. Somebody quoted him. Well, but David Fink said, and then whatever it was. And I would love it if we could go back and get whatever it was clarified somehow. Nobody else
Oh, you
remembers,
mean
I presume.
to say why we
I
don't need
think
housing?
When we, now, what it was, had something to do with, I think it was probably the JCC, somebody got up and said, well,
Yeah, they
David
keep
Fink,
on-
when David Fink talked to us about this years ago, he said blah, blah, blah. I would love to know what that was.
They said something like, David, even David Fink, and they called him like the housing consultant for Woodbridge, which he never was, but, well, actually, he did do like the POCD going back 10 years ago. But he said that you should encourage housing around like transportation and transit. But he didn't mean to say that that's the only place you should have housing. At the, like, you could only do it there and not do it, up in this area. So he had to clarify that. And he did in fact clarify that, but then they came back and called him all sorts of things. That was in the Woodbridge Town News, when they used to have those letters to the editor.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's a source of amusement.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Anyway, yeah,
Okay.
it's again taking stuff out
You
of
know,
context.
I noticed a couple of things about it in the commentary about the current DPC application that made me smile. And one of them was the encouragement that we have more information sessions, that this committee have information sessions. And I think it was Amy who actually said that. And I thought, well, okay, why don't we just send her a note and say we're having an information session? What kind of things, what are you thinking of that would be especially helpful? Call their bluff. It's not a bluff, I know, but I mean, follow up with them.
Well, maybe they'll come. I'm hoping, I'm
But
hoping,
if they don't, I mean, maybe they're not, maybe they're gonna be out of town on the 26th.
I'm disappointed I'm gonna be out of town on the 26th.
This is what
Because I would
was
like to have
planned.
been able to participate in
Is
this.
this what you had in mind? If you have other suggestions for educational sessions, please let us know. Just an
well, I
invitation.
don't want to just do a selective, ask them.
Well, whoever said it,
Yeah, I mean, we will.
You need to invite everybody.
everybody's gonna be
You
Yeah,
need
of
to-
course.
yeah.
It's
Are we,
not-
are we going to plan to have more in the fall? More of these sessions in the fall?
Yeah, because I
Sure,
think
sure.
I think the summer is just not the greatest time
It's
to
hard in
have
the summer.
informational sessions. So, yeah, no, definitely starting, that's why I like to talk about what we'd like to plan in September, October, and just start, like lining up like,
Yeah. We kinda had to have this one
calendar.
right now, cause David Fink retires at the end of that month, so this is the only
Didn't know
chance we
that,
have for
so
him.
learning as
Yeah.
we come.
That's why we had to jump on it.
yeah, so.
Get us started. Kick us
I'm-
off.
I mean, he has an expiration date?
He has an expert, he thinks he's retiring.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, there's plenty of other, experts and.
of course.
Yeah,
Of
well,
course.
we'll bring, there's other ideas. I mean, I'm even thinking about maybe having an expert coming on, even zoning, because even like the Public Act 2129, there seems to be a lot of confusion about that, and it's just having somebody come in and explain because that was a major zoning reform back in 2021, and what that means, and what the obligations are, and so people understand, like, we have to zone for increase in housing.
I'd like to give a lecture from an historical perspective about why we have zoning in Woodbridge at all. Who did it, when they did it, and why they did it.
Oh, that's, well, that's,
But we're not getting into that for right now.
well, I mean, that would be interesting. I mean, I also I'd love to have, like, maybe a session, who actually has some videotape session is Richard Rothstein from the, Color of Law, that
Oh, yeah.
maybe just, playing one of his videos and having a community conversation about that. I remember DEI used to have, like, book clubs, and they would discuss, like, the books, and I was just like, why don't you read Color of Law and, like, discuss that? It's kind of dry reading, though. I don't know if you ever try reading it, but did you ever, like, look at the book? Yeah.
Well, but it's one of those books that you put on your coffee table and sort of go, I really have to read some more of that book.
I know. I have it by my bedside, and I pick it up, and
But this is,
I read.
It's called The Color of Law.
But, anyway, but it's
I think that's the book that tells you what to do if you have a deed restriction and you want to get rid of it. Isn't that the book that has that appendix at the back? That's an interesting, he's an interesting guy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Should we have
so
a work session specifically for the affordable housing plan?
Well, that was what I was suggesting because, I mean, it turns
Yes.
out we have 45 minutes now. We could actually get something done.
We could, if we were prepared
But
for
we
it.
will not finish.
But I'm not prepared for it because these meetings tend to go longer than that. But if you want to do it, we could do it. I just don't have it with me.
Well,
But
it's a good illustration of what the plan of action is. I mean, when you're working with a committee, I don't know, other people probably have experience in different businesses and contexts, but for procedural documents, you have experts around a table who have not a whole lot of time. And so you've got somebody who's in control of the document and who takes their comments and incorporates them, or everybody's there, and if you have a disagreement or a question, you work it out, and then you just go to the next one, and you go to the next one, and you go to the next one. And if you don't finish, you've got more to work on, then your professional goes and re-edits everything and brings it all back, and the other people don't have to think about it. You just go from this one to this one, and the person who's in charge explains what the issues are in each case. So there's a lot of direction, and it tends to go more smoothly. And that was what I was thinking, maybe we should do
But would the expert lead
Because,
do
you know,
that?
just a couple people to knock things back and forth so that we could tell where the problems were, and then go forward to everybody else. But particularly when I looked again, I thought, well, most of these comments are mine. I can't resolve them.
Well, I thought you did a good job with it, and I'm fine with, I mean, have you looked at what Mary did?
I have not lately. I've been
Talking
slammed.
about
I'm just trying to keep
Well,
up
I-
with what I'm
I
doing
know,
here.
but you-
So, I'm like, if we had an hour-long work session, we sat down and did a block of pages and just focused, only did that, just did that. Would that be productive or
But it would
not?
be good to do some preliminary work, if everybody could commit to, Mary did all these edits, you look at the edits, you agree with the edits, if you don't agree with them, then you make comments to the edits, but you need to do that work ahead of time.
Okay.
If you have comments, you've been saying that you have all these comments, you haven't given that to Mary yet, that would be very helpful if you provided your comments to Mary. You know, if
And then
it's-
we'll have a time when we'll sit down and go through this.
Yes.
Okay.
And then remember, I offered to come and get them from you. You could
Yeah.
just take them to them, whatever would work
So
for you.
we're really
It's fine.
trying, but.
I made a note to do this, okay? You know, I've got a lot of other things going on. This is not the only thing. Yeah, look at me. I got a lot of other things going on.
No, I'm-
Doing my best.
I'm agreeing with you.
Doing my
I
best.
know, we're all
I-
agreeing
Okay,
with
but
you.
it's really hard because we're off in different tangents and it's really hard to keep up with this.
Yeah.
So,
Right. Well,
you know,
that's-
understand that.
That's what we're all saying. We're trying to find.
Yeah, but we got to do it the right way.
path that goes in the most efficient fashion. And as I said, I'm willing to make it
Understood.
easier.
Understood.
Because it's half digested, but I gotta have all the details.
And you
Like-
have
like a-
you have my comments in here, and I
Your
agree.
comments
I
in
agree
there.
with how you
You
put
can
my
send
comments.
I will
more
get you
back.
comments. I will
You
get
can
you
send more
comments.
back.
And then we should have a session. We should have a session.
Right, I mean, this is
Okay.
why in the beginning, because you were very vocal about this, and I appreciate that, and that's why I wanted you to take charge of it initially, and now you don't,
I will
you,
get Mary comments.
So I have one more question.
Oh.
When I was looking at this, I saw we had a lot of comments and changes and subject matter that needed to have comments and changes in the first 12 pages. And then we were supposed to look at some more pages, and it started to dribble off. You know, there weren't that many things represented there that were specific enough to be corrections, edits, amendments, as opposed to rewrites and reconsiderations. You'll see that I made a suggestion in there that we put in the preface, assuming we're gonna put our comment in the preface about editing it, that we put in the preface, what's the word I want? A word that tells you that, what is the
Keep talking.
disclaimer,
that it just
What was
says,
that, Gabe?
it says, it's a get out of jail free card. It says, everything, I think I worded it here, from all the data here is dated, and so.
oh, a
all
disclaimer,
of-
you are talking about disclaimer.
Is that what you wanted to say?
Disclaimer, that's the word I
Okay.
want. And you could write that in your nice legal types. What I said was that everything that was in the graphs and tables should be taken in that light. I don't remember what I said, but I wrote something.
Or maybe even refer to the,
and then-
POCD for updated.
I didn't even want to
ex-
read it over again myself.
Yeah, I mean, because we're gonna have a POCD that's gonna
We
have
can make,
updated, so if you want, up-to-date existing conditions of Woodbridge, please refer to our updated
of
POCD.
course, that's not going to be out when we would like to get this finished.
No, that should be out by, I mean, it was supposed to be done like last month, but that should be out by September.
Okay. Well, then that's easy.
Yeah, because I don't think we need to
still
go
have to see
through
them,
and
look at
correct
these.
especially since next year, we're gonna have to be starting on updating a new one, and I just don't think it's worth our time to, I think you need to make, if there's anything that's misleading or needs correcting, then, correct it. But, in terms of data being outdated, well, we're going to update it. If you want current data, refer to the POCD, and then we'll work on updating, going through the whole process when we update it for 2027, because we're gonna have to hire, we're gonna have to hire somebody to do that.
Is
Well, I
there-
do
is-
think there's virtue in addressing the things that have come up over
Right.
and over again, and
Yeah.
we're kind, you know,
That's
let's
what we
just,
did.
but they are all in the first 12 pages.
Yes.
Is there
So-
a draft copy of the POCD on the town website?
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
No, I've been asking for it,
Okay.
because I need to, update what we updated, and so
All right.
but they have to, there's like a 65-day review period, so, once
So it's
that
gonna be
draft
a while.
is, done, then that goes to, it probably will be posted.
What is our expectation of when we would have this done? I know we talked at one point about having it done in July, August. Obviously, that's not going to be possible. But when do we hope to get this out?
Our
Our part.
RFP, I mean, if we only had an hour this month, this is not a good month, but we could just get it done.
Yeah, I think we could just spend a good hour on it. If everybody does their homework.
Reads it,
and
marks it up,
We should be able to do it, have maybe
lets me know if they need anything.
one good meeting,
Go through it line by line.
maybe go into the conference room and just sit there and just, go through it.
Get it done.
Yeah,
That would be an open meeting, though. But
Yeah, you
that's
have to,
okay.
yeah, it would be,
It would be a
Be a
special.
very
It'd be
boring thing
special
for anybody to
meeting.
watch. But yes.
yeah, it would be a special meeting, and I imagine, I guess you could tape it if.
I don't think there would be much virtue in taping it because the result is going to be published.
Yeah, well, I don't
Or
know.
maybe there might be discussion,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway, yeah, I think that's,
So we could adjourn and all go and start.
it's the light.
And the rest of us can go out for a drink. No.
You could go out for a drink?
Any
You
cookies?
know what?
You gonna go out to dinner and start on?
Yeah.
We'll look at it.
Okay, should we pick a date to do this?
Always good to pick a date, particularly in the summertime.
Yes.
Pick a date, pick a date.
What was the date to meet and then a date in advance of that to get comments for sure? I mean, you're going to try to get comments if we haven't gotten comments out
We wanna
within the
get-
next few days, I would imagine.
What's the date of our July meeting?
That's a good question. Because the
Second?
holiday comes in.
The
Yeah.
second?
It,
It's July 2nd.
Whatever the Wednesday, the first Wednesday is. or
The
Oh,
second.
it's-
Yeah, I think that's right. All right, I won't be here then. I'll be back the 3rd.
I won't be back.
You going on a holiday?
I'm
Yes.
going to be in Spain.
Someplace
Back.
Oh, we're in Spain.
Yeah,
Someplace
going to England.
nice.
Yep,
See, yeah,
10
and
days.
maybe I
Going to
don't-
England for 10 days.
Got
Where
your
in
travel.
England?
Colchester area?
Really?
Yep.
That's unusual.
That's where my dad's from.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
I go back there once a year.
It's their first.
So maybe the next Wednesday, not the next, well, we could do the next Wednesday, I guess,
It's a new congregation, so.
which would be the
And then we-
9th,
My brother-in-law's in Mallorca, so he's gonna join
June
us.
July 9th.
But
He's
nice
going to
is
join us
okay.
in, we've been in.
Yeah, I get back from vacation on,
That's for Nadella.
actually
is
July
right?
2nd is the day I get back. But
Yeah,
Raphael?
yeah.
Yeah, my husband wants to go to this tennis camp.
So do we need to go to July? Because if we don't have to. It doesn't, it's
I have this, no,
What do
I
you
have
mean?
this,
Do we need to
7
go to July?
pages.
I understand. I have the 2030 meeting is June
Oh, that's right.
16th.
Right.
I'm busy with that. I have
I'm
lots of
putting
things
it on
to
my
do.
calendar right now.
Put it on your calendar.
yeah,
Um,
and we have the thing on June
and I-
26th,
You have this thing on June 26th.
and I got 3 applications to
Oh,
do the
got to do this.
27th.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
It's not,
Does July 9th work? Where's what she asked you?
works for me if you want a response.
Yeah, all right.
so we have our
I got
meeting
it on
on
my
July
calendar.
2nd, our regular meeting,
Yeah.
and then we're gonna have a working session on July 9th.
Are we going to have a quorum on the second?
I will not be here on the
And
2nd.
I
Lou won't be here on the 2nd.
I'll be here, but I'll be half asleep, but I'll be here. But we should, if you want to have a meeting, we could do a
Oh,
short meeting.
so we're, thinking about maybe just changing our meeting to July 9th?
July 9th. If
We're
we
not
don't
gonna have
have an
quorum.
awful lot to do at that meeting, we can do this at the meeting.
All right, I'll need to change that,
So you're going to change the meeting to July 9th?
Chris and I won't be here for
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
So you're not gonna have a quorum, you're not gonna have a meeting July
Two
2nd.
thoughts.
and
One
do a quorum.
is,
Right.
do
So-
July 9th. Second thought is, put this on the agenda and don't let anybody else talk about anything else. Till we finish.
Okay, why don't we
And then it's
just,
done.
Okay.
why don't we just have at our regular meeting, just, I'll change the regular meeting from the 2nd to the 9th.
To the 9th.
And then the only thing on the agenda will be getting this done.
Perfect.
And
Okay,
if,
good.
and when you read through it, if you have any other comments you want to have put into it for everybody to see, then just send them to me and I will produce another
Yep.
draft for review at the meeting. And we can also just project it, but
Yeah, maybe we'll project it and.
But
then
it
we can just
doesn't
do the
matter. I mean,
changes.
it's 7 pages. We can print it out.
It's not a long thing. All right, so
Okay.
motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Sure.
Okay.
Let me go